Welcome back. Straight to central Paris, where the verdicts and sentences are being announced this evening for the 20 suspects who had a hand in the 2015 Paris attacks. Well, the chief suspect, Salah Abdeslam, has been found guilty of murder and attempted murder in relation with a terrorist enterprise. That's amongst other charges he faces. 18 others were found guilty of terror-related charges. Well, in all, 130 people lost their lives on that night in November 2015. These were the worst ever peacetime attacks on French soil. The attacks targeted the Bataclan Theatre, 6 bars and restaurants, and the National Stadium. Well, 7 years later, large crowds have gathered outside the Palais de Justice to hear the court hand down the verdict. Well, I'm here in the studio with France 24's International Affairs editor, Philip Turle. Philip, what have we been finding out from the courthouse during the course of this evening?
Well, the beginning of this reading of the outcome, the verdict, started about 15 minutes ago, and the president of the court said that he wasn't going to read out the 120-page document because this was due to start at 5 o'clock this afternoon, Paris time. It's now 8:30 in the evening, Paris time. So he said it's been such a long day, he was going to go straight to the most important part. So as you were saying, 19 of the defendants have been found guilty. He has said that the only one who is not found guilty is Farid Karkak, who was only sentenced for being part of an armed group of which the aim was to commit fraud, but not to actually be involved in terrorism. But he did say that the guilty verdict on Salah Abdeslam as part of the group was being held up because the explosive belt that he was wearing in fact didn't work, and this is throwing a lot of doubt on what Salah Abdeslam has been saying all the way through this trial, which was that he didn't detonate this explosive belt because he didn't want to do it, because he didn't want to kill people. So there's a lot of doubt about the sincerity that he's had. So he has been found guilty of terrorism. A couple of others here, Mohamed Abrini, who was also part of the terrorist group, who's another Belgian national of Moroccan origin. He is also been accused of being a fully integral member of the terrorist cell. And there is one other one also, Mohamed Bakali, who provided preparation for the terrorist attacks using 3 different identity cards, putting up makeup to disguise himself while he was renting an apartment, and also other places which were used as a base for preparation of these terrorist attacks. So guilty verdicts handed down to 19 of the 20 terrorists. You have to remember that 6 of them are being tried in absentia. It's believed that several of those who are in absentia are dead. But Salah Abdeslam, who has tried all the way through this trial to say that he has learned something, that he wasn't a killer, is having a lot of doubt thrown on his statements via what has been said by the judge over the fact that the explosives belt that should have been detonated wasn't working, and it wasn't Salah Abdeslam who himself decided he didn't want to detonate that explosives belt, that suicide belt that he was wearing.
OK, stay with us, Felix. I've got some more questions for you. Let's cross, though, to Anne Giudicelli, who is a terrorism expert and an author who joins us now from, I believe, central Paris. Could I just start by asking, Anne, for your reaction to, it looks like you're right in front of the Palais de Justice, in fact. Could I start by asking for reaction to what's been announced so far?
It's very interesting the way how the justice has identified the real reason of, the main points that makes Abdeslam guilty. It's not the question of homicide or anything that he was intended to do, but he has been sentenced for what he should have done. It's very different. That means with the story of this belt, that he said that he regrets, and finally he renounced to use it to kill people. finally it was a tricky way for him to avoid any sentence. So that has been revealed by this sentence, and it's a great and smart way how to handle and to deal with this complex issue, and it's great.
Was there a reaction outside the courtroom when that sentence was handed down? I mean, did you hear gasps or a sense of surprise when the sentences were announced?
Well, I don't know exactly what is going on inside the justice court, but it's clear that it was the best way how to for the victims and for as the way how to end this trial, to show that you cannot use any kind of strategy to avoid being guilty when it has been proved by evidence that this belt was made to be used, and it was not it's not because he renounced of using it, but because he simply was not functioning. So that's, as I said, I think that all the victim will be happy to learn that, and it's a fair way how to end the process and to have a fair way of a balanced way and well documented and with strong evidence that he was guilty for what he has been sentenced.
And stay with us, because I just want to put another question to Philip, our international affairs editor, who's here with me in the studio. Philip, where do we go to from here? How do we move on, if you like?
Well, I think that this is a very important evening because we are getting these verdicts. We don't know what they're being sentenced to yet, but all the efforts by their lawyers, each defendant is being defended by their own lawyer. This is all basically crumbling in front of what the verdict is saying here, is that each one of these defendants is being found guilty for involvement in these terrorist attacks of 2015. Salah Abdeslam, most of all, as we've just been hearing, because of the explosive belt, he's the only surviving member of the original commando group. The rest of them are all dead. But all these other people who are part of these 14 men standing trial and the 6 who are being tried in absentia are being vindicated one after the other for the role they played. Only one has not been formally charged with terrorism. And I think that goes to show that even though there may have been efforts by their legal teams to try to play down the role that they have, the evidence that's coming forward after the jury has been consulting for these hours is that they were all involved in this terrorist attack. And that is very important for the families of the victims, for the relatives of those who died, and for the rest of French society to know that justice is being done today, and that the victims, those who died, the 130 people who lost their lives on the night of the 13th of November, are at last seeing justice done, even though they're not around to appreciate what the French justice system is doing. And that is one way that France can fight back against terrorism, through democracy, through its justice system, through the fact it can organise a trial like this. It can show the world that it is not going to stand, it's not going to give in to terrorist attacks, it's going to stand up to them. And I think that's very important. I think what we're going to see now is that all hopes that Salah Abdeslam may get a more lenient sentencing, for example, under normal justice rules in France, he would be given a life sentence would be 22 years in jail, and then he would be allowed parole. I think this time round we will see that he will be given a very rare sentence, which means he will not be allowed in parole, which basically means once he goes to prison, he will die in prison. He will not be allowed any time to be released or given a reduction in his sentence. As for the others, well, we'll have to see what the judge announces later on. But certainly the verdicts coming out at the moment are pretty severe, and I think will be taken by the victims' families as some kind of relief that at last their voices have been heard and that their loved ones who died in these attacks are at last being given the justice that they deserve.
Yeah, so a sense of closure for the families, as you say. And I just want to ask you, Anne, I mean, this trial, 10 months of legal process and this potentially harsh sentence, the harshest possible sentence under French law, which has only ever been given out 4 times, that Philip was just describing, life meaning life behind bars. What message do you think that sends out to jihadist organizations and people who might be inspired by them?
You know, I understand the fact that if the decision has taken so long, I mean, with a bit delay to be taken, it's because the pressure was very heavy to the judge and jury's shoulders. So, because everyone knows that it's a very important decision that will make a case, let's say, for the history. So I do believe that the French justice has finally reached, let's say, a fair level of how to judge a new phenomena for Europe and especially for France. And yes.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Anne Giudicelli, terrorism expert and author. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us on France 24.
Thank you.
I'm still here in the studio with our international affairs editor, Philip Turle. Philip, I've got